Let me just double check.
Right, it's preparing. I've done it now, mate. Got to stick.
All right.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Boxing Talk podcast, episode 9. And it's the first one. We are live, fellas. So, not that there's much editing anyway. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Boxing Talk podcast. There's the good stuff. Yeah, there you go. That's what happens, everyone. Forgive me. Very cool. The Boxing Talk podcast, episode 9. No repeat on this one. We've got the usual cast of Mr. Harry Roberts. Are you all right, my mate?
I'm here. Hello.
Mr. Phil Campbell.
Good to be here.
And the infamous Saved by the Bell Boxing, Mr. Jay Lynch. You okay, mate?
Fabulous.
Good stuff. We'll get right on into it then. We're going to start with Mr. Jay Lynch. There is a method in my madness. I did take the pleasure of watching a video by Saved by the Bell Boxing, and you pronounced the opponent of Mr. Warrington right. And I don't back myself to get it right. So I'm going to start with you, my mate. Josh Warrington versus... Take it away.
I can't remember now.
I can help you. We're off to a fly here. I can help you
start this, boys.
Takoucht.
Sofian Takoucht, I think.
There you go. Yeah. Well, as I said, it was impressive by Josh Warrington. He did what he had to do. Had to make a statement. Had to get him out there quickly. Was obviously very hyped up for the fight. I think that, as I said, he's kind of growing into this, being a world champion, and kind of sees himself that he needs now, after Selby, Frampton, Galahad, to be in with those elite fighters, Santa Cruz, Gary Russell Jr. I think he believes he needs to be on that level. And I think when he came into that ring, he kind of looked at that opponent and kind of thought, look, you know, you're not worthy of being in the ring with me. I'm the world champion. I'm a different level. And from the opening bell, that's a statement that he wanted to put out there. And when he's got his crowd behind him, you know, he's going to be a real problem for everyone. Very aggressive, very come forward, a lot of spite in his work. Although he comes across in interviews as a very nice, amicable, sort of friendly Leeds fella, he's obviously got a very nasty streak in him. When he gets in the ring, he's able to switch it on and switch it off. So I thought he had a good range of punches, stayed on his toes, got in and out quickly, made it hard work for his opponent. And you could see, you know, as I said, in the first round, you could see that fight was only going one way, and it was going to go one way very quickly.
Absolutely. Harry and Phil. Either of you two catch it?
Yeah, watched it. Really enjoyed it. I love Josh Warrington. I think he's good. I was quite disappointed in his last fight against Galahad. Although it was a tough opponent, tricky opponent, I thought he could have done better. It was borderline lost the fight for me. But he looked back to his best, high intensity, great work rate, as everyone knows, and he got him out of there. So I was very, very, very impressed.
Yeah.
He's just that one big American fight away, isn't he, from being up there with the best of the best. So hope he gets to.
He's kind of going from strength to strength, isn't he? And I tell you, probably me being a negative, glass half empty kind of guy, I kind of watched his performance and thought, he's probably going to come out that he's on PEDs, or I don't know, because I just think he's doing so well, and does anyone feel it's out of nowhere, or is anyone watching now thinking, I always knew he kind of had these heights? Because if you look at his knockout ratio, and it's poor. I mean, I think it's 30 wins, 9 KOs, and then you see him wobbling Frampton and hurting everyone he's fighting and stopping a guy who's not been stopped, to my knowledge. I'm just thinking, like, where's this come from? Is it like a mindset thing, or what? Have you known him a while? I don't know, you lot.
I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a documentary about him on Netflix, Amazon, one of them, and he did. It's interesting. It's before the Selby fight, follows him before the Selby fight, and he does get really nervous before the fight. So it's a really good watch if you've not seen it. He does get really nervous and really anxious, especially when he's at the Leeds Arena, because I think he was saying on the documentary that he says he feels like he needs to impress. He needs to put on a show. So he works himself up. So I don't know if that has an effect, but yeah.
Sounds like it then. Sounds like maybe he's got a bit of confidence boost then from...
Yeah, so I think maybe if you just get that little mindset change, then it can change a lot with the fight, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, echo the thoughts of, Harry and Jay did look very good against Takushi the other night. Come forward, cut the ring off very nicely, like really took it to his opponent. And wanted to make a statement. I got that impression. He had his fight against Galahad. Very close fight. It's that kind of performance doesn't propel you into fighting the other world champions in the division. So he needed a bit of a statement. And he gave that, first round, you just kind of knew he looked very comfortable. It was his territory. And then in the second round, when he started unleashing those flurry of punches, and you see once he knocked him down, you knew that fight was going to be stopped.
Yeah.
30, 40 seconds later. And it was very impressive. But yeah, just to come back to what you were saying, like out of nowhere, it's the Selby fight, really, because, it became mandatory. But he didn't really have a huge following, I'd say, outside of Leeds. Obviously, he's very well backed by his hometown and his home people and everything. Yeah. But that fight was so good. I mean, I presume you've all probably seen it. It was such a war. I think he was wearing white shorts and they came out red in the end. And Selby had been beaten. He looked so good doing that. And then he goes from that fight to then defending 6 months later against Frampton. And again, another fight of the year. So his last sort of 4 fights, they've all been good. They've all been wars. They've all been close, bar this last one. So, I think, he's coming to the public eye due to, one, now being a world champion, fighting the likes of Carl Frampton. And then being really good fights. Like, I've not seen a Josh Warrington fight that you've been bored with for whatever reason.
Yeah, definitely.
Different types of fighters. And this is something you were saying, when I saw it at the weekend. He's quickly becoming one of Britain's best, boxers, regardless of weight. He's a world champion. He's unbeaten. And, and he could quite easily go and fight these, these top Americans and whatever, and, potentially unify. So good luck to him. He's a likable guy. He's entertaining, and you want to see him do well.
I certainly think he's one of them fighters as well, a bit like Ricky Hatton, where his style's kind of so fast-paced action and output, you don't kind of appreciate his skills either, really. Because what you just said about cutting the ring off, I mean, thinking about it, his feet were so quick. He's so in and out.
Yeah, his opponent had nowhere to go.
Punches, he's coming back out. He's quite smart, really, with his work. But I don't have that like initial impression. Like when I think about it, I just think
work rate.
British scrapper, really, when I think Josh Warrington. But that's not the case at all. Going back to Jay, then, what's next? And will he ever get a big fight? Is it possible?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. And he has to get a big fight. I mean, there's no real. For one, public will demand a big fight. For two, he'll demand a big fight. For three, the network will demand a big fight. And he deserves a big fight. There's not really much else around him that he can. If Frampton had the big fight, Santa Cruz twice, then there's no reason why Josh Warrington can't. I think Santa Cruz is the one that he wants. Gary Russell Jr. is another option. Let me see who else. Gary Russell Jr. Oscar Valdez possibly.
What? Wait, is it Louis Neri? Louis Neri? What is it?
The one that's fighting in the final of the Boxing Super Series against. You on about him? Or?
I don't know. I'm so uneducated. Under 130.
So I think Gary Russell Jr., Oscar Valdez, and Santa Cruz, those are 3 title holders. So, and then you're going on to Galahad, Frampton, etc., etc. So I think with the following that he has, he'll gain traction. Do you know what I mean? Whether it be here or whether it be in the States, because for one, if it's in the States, he'll get the pay-per-view buys here because he does have such a big following and he's exciting to watch and he's a fan favourite. And I talked about on my channel about does he have this Ricky Hatton status? Can he emulate what Ricky Hatton was doing? And I think he can. When you're connected to a football club, it's quite easy to get those travelling fans. Football fans love to travel, and they love a good piss up, and they love a good drink, and they love a good away day. So I think he could definitely emulate that. So I think the only way forward is a big fight. Do you know what I mean? And I think Santa Cruz might possibly be the one that he'll take next.
I keep hearing that Santa Cruz and Mares are moving up, though. Or am I hearing incorrectly?
Yeah, I think that's possible. But I think Josh Warrington will generate a large amount of money, to be honest with you, because definitely from this side, because of the pay-per-view buy. So whether we could get him over here, is a different thing altogether. Gary Russell Jr. rarely fights, does he? He only does once a year or something like that. So I think they're going to have to try and force this fight, because Josh Warrington is not going to be happy with fighting those standard of opponents that he did at the weekend. He's not that sort of guy.
Is Gary Russell with Al Heyman?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. And I think he's Oscar Valdez with Eddie Hearn. He is, isn't he?
I don't know. Like I say,
I think he's with Eddie Hearn, and then Santa Cruz, I think he's with
Golden Boy, isn't he?
I'm not sure. Oh, really, I'm not sure. So
that's just
either way, there's always going to be politics in every fight that we try and make. So
I'm going to research this.
He'll demand those fights. That's the only way he can go now.
He deserves it as well. Just to add, I think he deserves them fights massively.
I was thinking economically, is it going to be possible though? Because Ricky Hatton is just before kind of when I took an interest in boxing. Really, I can't. Obviously, I know his big fights, but I don't know his kind of story and his journey before he got there. Back in Ricky Hatton's day, I guess this is a question for you, Jay, quickly. Was he ever a pay-per-view fighter in Britain, or was he purely that kind of stadium attraction? Not stadium, that kind of full arena every time attraction.
Oh, no, he's a pay-per-view fighter. I mean, when he beat Costa Tszyu, that was his pinnacle fight, and he'll always say that. And that was the one that really, really launched him.
Great fight.
Because of the following that he had, there was a mass interest, especially from Sky trying to push it. Do you know what I mean? From this side of the pond. So when he's going to go on and face, your Mayweather, Pacquiao, etc. So yeah, he was definitely a pay-per-view draw, 100%.
Yeah. Santa Cruz is PBC, by the way.
Right.
Is it? Interesting. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, because with Ricky Hatton, the big pay-per-view fights he got in America are obviously famously Pacquiao and Mayweather. And that was him moving up for the disadvantage. So he really was the B-side, really, in both them fights. But I'm just thinking, Warrington, if he's looking to go over the pond to fight, really, what's a 50-50 fight with these other champions, is he a big enough draw to kind of demand that fight? That's what I'm thinking. I know the fans want it, but because he would have to go to America, in my mind, I can't see them guys coming to Britain at all. Especially with Frank Warren. I can't see BT having the backing to bring over a Santa Cruz or a Gary Russell. What do you not think to that?
Well, he's a pay-per-view fighter here.
Is he?
Well,
he is now.
If the name's big enough, they're definitely going to put it on pay-per-view. Do you know what I mean? Was Warrington Frampton pay-per-view?
Only because of Frampton.
So if you bring Santa Cruz, that's the only way you're going to do it. Or if you bring Gary Russell, do you know what I mean? They're going to have to be pay-per-view because you're not going to be able to do it otherwise. And I think I think he is a draw to be pay-per-view. If you look at the standard of pay-per-view nowadays across the platforms, do you know what I mean? You would say one of BT's bigger world champions, bigger names, he's Josh Warrington. Warrington. So, and if he went abroad, you're going to get the numbers because of the following that he sort of has. So I don't think, and if Santa Cruz is looking at a fight or Gary Russell Jr. is looking at a fight and they're looking at figures, really, who else is going to bring that sort of support that Josh Warrington's going to bring, and a title as well? So I think it'll have to happen.
Well, I just predict that he's going to be Kell Brooks. All of his fights are in America, so he has to go to America in my mind. Because I just really cannot see them three guys coming to the UK to fight Warrington because he's in his prime. It's a 50-50 fight, and they'd probably only get 1 or 2 million. And I think their promoters can back that their side.
Well, I think he'd be more than happy to do that, though. I don't think he'd have
travel.
a problem.
He'd travel over.
I think, in fact, he wants to go abroad. I think he wants to go to that. He wants to fight in Vegas. Wants to fight in Madison Square Garden. Wants to fight at the Staples. He wants those, you know.
No, 100%. I agree with that. It's not Warrington's side I'm questioning it. It's the other side.
Well, where did he go?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see. I guess we'll see is probably the answer to this topic, but I just can't see it because none of them are mentioning his name, and that's all it comes down to. If you never have fighters mentioning your name, I think it's likely the fight won't happen. And his name's never mentioned, probably because I think he's so primed and got so much momentum at the minute. I think they'll probably leave it for a year or a bad performance before he's kind of looked at to be brought over. That's just my take, but I guess we'll see.
They might force it money-wise, money-wise, promoters, you know what I mean? I think they have some sort of, you know, they say they don't have, you know, a lot of promoters say, well, the fighter chooses the fight and the trainer and the manager. But, you know, if there's a lot of money involved, there's going to be pressure put on these fighters to take these fights, do you know what I mean? Rather than waiting a year or so. And it's that kind of, it's, you know, every division is different and every fighter is different. But I think in this case, you know, it's like, it's not going to be, I don't think it'd be a Kell Brook scenario. Do you know what I mean? Like, because Kell Brook possibly wasn't bringing enough to the table that I think Warrington would bring more to the table.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Support and pay-per-view numbers, personally.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a watch this space for that one. I reckon it'll be the Frampton fight next year for Warrington. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully he can get himself over the pond because I think that has to be the next step for him, doesn't it? So.
Well, he's got nowhere else to go domestically, have he? He's beat Selby, he's beat Frampton, he's had Galahad. He doesn't need to prove himself, and he'd stagnate if he did that. His next now step is to try and unify and mix it with the world, the elite guys. So hopefully that happens.
Definitely. All right, moving on then. Sorry, Harry, do you want to kick in there, mate?
I was going to say in that documentary I watched before the Selby fight, they were discussing what fight to take, and Warrington was actually saying that They had an offer from America and he actually wanted to take it, but his team made him turn it down.
Interesting.
Yeah, they said because it was 500 grand if I remember rightly. They offered him 500 grand to go over to America, and Warrington wanted to do it because he said he was not sick of it, but he said he felt like he was fighting Leeds Arena over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But then his dad and his manager made him turn it down. So don't know if his team have something to do with it. Maybe they're holding him back a little bit or keeping him comfortable.
You never know, do you, in boxing? There's so many stakeholders and parties involved with every fighter. You know, the broadcaster, the promoter, the manager, the family, the trainer, You know, you just never know.
His dad's his trainer, and he came across quite like controlling. Seemed to be wanting to be the boss. I think they had a few falling outs on it, so you don't know what the side's saying, what the team's saying.
Definitely, yeah. I'm quite surprised they made a documentary on Selby before Warrington before the Selby fight.
Yeah, it was really
shocked me. He really was small time, I guess, before that fight. To be honest, for a documentary. It's good. It's well worth a watch if anyone can find it. It's cool. I'll keep a lookout for that. Moving on then to the other one, the one that I was more interested in, to be honest, because two big names fighting this weekend, but I think we'd all agree probably small, meaningless fights, to be honest. Mr. Usyk. Phil, did you catch this? Do you want to kick it off?
Against Chaz Witherspoon, wasn't it? Who I think was a second cousin of Tim Witherspoon, former champion from the 80s.
The second cousin, even family, is that?
Of course it is.
It's some relation.
Does anyone talk to their second cousin?
Huh?
I don't know.
Does anyone talk to their second cousin?
I'm known to.
Well, I'm not sure what a second cousin is, to be honest. But
I was going to say, yeah, fair play to Jay then, family man.
I'm a paddy, so.
but no, Usyk's. Well, glad it happened finally. He was meant to fight Takam, that got postponed. He was meant to then fight Spong or whatever. Just PEDs and lizards. That's what that man is. And then so. And it was a fight that, he looked very, very comfortable in it. Very typical Usyk fight, really. First couple of rounds was just sizing his opponent up. Like we've talked about before, that's what he does. He likes to see what his opponent does, read their movements, look where he can, what gaps they've got in their defense, any weaknesses, things like that. And then, goes into the fight and then breaks them down bit by bit. And I think it was a stoppage in the 7th. And yeah, it was against a guy who was ranked, well down in the rankings and whatever. But as far as Usyk go, it was a very typical performance, very dominant, very impressive. But you just want to see him. You want to see him in with better quality of guys. You kind of knew that was what was going to happen anyway. With him being the WBO mandatory, he is waiting the winner of Joshua Ruiz, so we might see him against world level guys quite soon. Which I think that's where he needs to be. I don't see any benefit or purpose of him fighting nobodies at heavyweight. I think he needs to be, because we know how good he is, we know how skilled he is, and I think he will probably cope with that size, being a smaller guy. Ruiz obviously did. So yeah, look very good, and let's hopefully see him against these world level guys and see what he's really about at heavyweight. So
yeah, interesting. I was very disappointed, actually, not with his performance, because I think his performance was whatever in that kind of fight against that kind of opponent.
Well, yeah, it is what it is.
I saw a load of rubbish there. I mean, what was the point in it? So I don't feel like I've seen him at heavyweight. I think the guy who was fighting so low an opponent, it was so short notice for that guy. I mean, to see that guy come in the shape he was, with kind of, it looked like to me he had no kind of snap or power behind his punches.
No.
Anyway, I thought it's no test for him at heavyweight, and it's no introduction. So I thought, what a load of rubbish. And I also thought, like, just from a show perspective or a fan, if I bought a ticket to watch him Takam, and then it went to Spong, and you're like, oh, and then it went to this guy,
you're wanting your money back.
Yeah, I thought, what a load of rubbish. And I've learned nothing about Usyk at heavyweight whatsoever. And I don't think he's going to have gained anything from this at all. So I thought, pants. I think Jay thinks differently from what I watched of your video. Have you got a kind of response to that?
Look, I think it's understanding Usyk as a fighter, as a person. Usyk will learn from anything that he's put involved with, and he's stepping up, and he's just fighting smaller gloves, not sparring with a bigger guy, getting used to a bigger guy. No matter how bad this guy was and how late an opponent he was, he's still a bigger guy. He's still going to hold a bit more power than what he's used to. Do you know what I mean? No matter how slow he hits, if he does connect him, he's going to hold more power. It's a natural thing. He's a bigger guy, and for me, I like the way that Usyk really doesn't bow to any of the criticism or pressure or anything like that, because he doesn't give a shit. He knows what he's doing. He's got his plan. Do you know what I mean? And at that night, at no point was he hurt, which he shouldn't have been. At no point was he in trouble. It was almost like a glorified sparring session, which it was. So in those scenarios, a clever fighter in entering to a new weight division will test things, will try things, and he's that kind of fighter who's very methodical in what he does. So he's testing things, he's trying things, he's feeling his way into it, he's feeling his way out. He doesn't bow to the people around him going, knock him out, get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what you say, he doesn't care what I say, he doesn't care what any media outlet says. So I think for me, he just did what he had to do. At any point, he could have stopped it. If you notice, at one point, he's fighting, and I said this in my video, he was fighting, because I watched the US coverage, and Sergio Mora, I think he was saying, and he was literally had him, put some punches together, backed him up into the corner, and then he just stepped off, and he dropped back. He took about 3 paces back, and just started again. Now, there was no reason for him to do that. He could have finished him there, because if he'd have given a flurry of punches, the referee would have jumped in, stopped it. So why did he do that? He didn't do it because...
You tell me. I think he did it because what else is there to do? Which I think is the disappointing bit for me.
No, because he could have gone in there and just put it on him. Bam, 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 bam. And any sort of flurry of punches, that ref, bearing in mind it was a late opponent, he would have jumped in and stopped that fight.
Yeah.
Easily would have stopped that fight. So there's a reason why he stepped off. Why did he step off? He stepped off because he was enjoying himself. He's learning how to move with a heavier weight. His punches weren't as snappy. He admits that he didn't really hold the power that possibly, and he probably might not hold the power in this division. But for me, it was just learning. He was just and enjoying.
I agree with everything you said with regards to Usyk. I think his temperament's incredible. I love how cocky he is in a good way, if that makes sense, and his arrogance in his boxing. But what has he learned though, Jay? What you saying?
We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. And this is the thing. People are very quickly saying, well, he's obviously learned nothing because he's better than that, and et cetera, and he's a former unified champion. We are making assumptions that we don't know because we're not him. We didn't know how he was feeling. Maybe he was feeling a bit lethargic before he went in. Maybe he's feeling a bit heavy with that weight. Maybe he's thinking his output's not as much as it used to be. We don't know. So for him, he might be thinking, well, I need to work on my output more. I need to work on the snap of my punches. And I learned this from that. And I noticed that when I put my jab in, it wasn't as snappy as it used to be. Why is that? Was it? Do you know what I mean? There's so many variations, and I just think that we're so quick to say, well, because he didn't do this, then obviously he's not going to survive at that level because it's a poor opponent. I don't really buy into that. I think if it was an opponent who was coming in to blast someone out and didn't do it and was putting constant pressure and aggressively going forward. So if for instance, Josh Warrington had gone into with that guy and was constantly putting it on him the aggressive way he was doing for 10 rounds and didn't get rid of him, then we would ask questions and say, well, why couldn't you get rid of that guy? But he wasn't fighting like that. He was fighting like it was a practice sparring session. He was not in any rush to get rid of that opponent.
Yeah. What do you think, Harry? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was just one of the cases of, obviously he didn't want the opponent change. I think he would have loved to have fought Takam.
Yeah.
And I think, he's already been saying he wants the big guns next, so you can't knock him for that. I think it's just a case of knocking the ring rust off. I think everyone, like I said last week, I thought he'd been out the ring longer than what he had. It's been a year. So it's a long time. Obviously, he's been sparring plenty. I assume he's probably been sparring some really good quality opponents. But I think the case of just knocking that ring rust off, get a few rounds in the bank. And yeah, I think he looked like Jay said, he was comfortable the whole fight. Got rid of him, sized him up, did what he needed to do. Just think he needs them big fights. He can't be wasting, another year and a half.
That's my thought.
3 more fights. Yeah. It needs to be in with like a Dillian White or a big, a top 10.
Yeah, because it's no criticism of Usyk or the promoter, Eddie, because, if someone pulls out, that sucks. And if someone gets done for steroids, so you're on a third pick, and you've not got a big multi-million-pound fighter like AJ, where you can pay a top fighter to come in, you are scuppered. So it's no criticism of anybody. But I do hope his next opponent is better, because he is talking about Wilder, Fury, and Joshua. He's mentioned all their names since.
Okay, we'll look at it this way. Every new fight that goes on a new platform always has a gimme, right?
Yeah.
His gimme originally was Carlos Takam.
Yeah.
Right? What's Billy Joe Saunders' gimme?
What is his gimme, actually? I have no idea.
Who's he fighting?
Well, his gimme was the bloke he fought originally at super middleweight for that WBO belt.
That was an on Matchroom.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, you mean for Matchroom? Oh, it's the guy who's fighting on the KSI undercard, isn't it?
Exactly. Who is he?
Yeah,
Have you seen his record? The guy he's fighting? If you go onto BoxRec and look at his record, it's ridiculous. It's horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And this is a guy that's a world champion and that's been calling out all the top names that he wants to fight. Do you know what I mean? So we give him a stick for fighting Chaz Witherspoon. Do you know what I mean? At late result, after one opponent had pulled out, after another opponent he couldn't get. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
Again, let me make it clear, though. I'm giving no stick whatsoever, because it's not used...
What I'm saying is I don't think he's the sort of person that's going to hang around for a year fighting nobodies.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying, because he's got to, because he's called out the big three, and say he does go straight into the Josh fight next year because he is that sure of his skills and his boxing, I think he's at a disadvantage now because that wasn't a test, and there's no way you could sell it to me that it was, because if you're a sprinter and you can beat the other guy by 3 seconds.
Would you have preferred him to have been in a somewhat of a war though, and to put a bit of mileage on the clock?
Yeah.
But would that have left him more at a disadvantage going into a bigger fight?
If he has to have a war with a top 10, then he will never be at the top 3, will he? Really?
True.
So,
yeah, but it's like you're going to get that. As I said, you're going to get that gimme fight. It's going to happen. And this is two late replacements. Do you know what I mean? He originally was meant to fight Carlos Takam.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, mate. Yeah,
and he's not going to wait around. He's not. He has a lot of belief in himself. Now, whether he can beat the top guys, well, that's a different story altogether. But he's not afraid, I don't think, to be stepping in with them. And that's he didn't come into the heavyweight division not to fight for a title, even though he says he wants. And he's quite clever because he knows that Ruiz is a harder test than Joshua for him stylistically, but I personally don't think he's ready to jump straight into a championship fight. I think he does need a top 10 opponent, but I don't think he's going to hang around either.
No, definitely, completely agree with you, mate. No, like I say, no stones being thrown from here. Big fan of Usyk, and
you're a hater.
You're racist. You're just quickly before we move on, though. I just wanted to chuck this in because I remember thinking this as well when I watched the fight. The whole who was the boxer as well recently, just this last week, who died or taken to hospital? Can't remember his name. Forgive me, everyone or whatever. But everyone talks about steroids, always, the danger. I mean, Eddie Hearn said in an interview, you've had a boxer go to the hospital tonight, and Tyrone Spong or whatever his name is failed test. It's so dangerous. I remember just thinking though, like, so is getting a guy on like a week's notice to fight an undisputed pound for pound guy. I see that as just as dangerous, and it just makes me think like boxing as a whole is a joke and how badly organised it is, because again, no stones at Usyk or Eddie. It's just the way it is. But for fans to pay a lot of money to watch Usyk to fight somebody who's crap compared to his level, compared to Usyk's level, on a week's notice, I think that puts the fighter in danger. And I think it's rubbish for the fans. So I just wanted to chuck that point out there. Speaking of boxers actually being in bad ways, I wasn't actually going to bring this up, but before we move on to the next topic, does anyone want to speak about Errol Spencer's car crash at all?
Well, yeah, I know what you're going to say.
For lack of a more morbid topic.
I know what you're going to say here, and it's, why is Errol Spence out partying 3 a.m?
No, it weren't that. He's a millionaire world champion. I get that. It's more just like, is anyone worried that he is actually injured?
I think it's scary, definitely. It's a scary situation. I mean, have you seen the video of the crash?
Yeah.
He's gone fucking flying.
It's just the announcements he's in intensive care, but in the next breath he's got no broken bones, no fractures, no nothing, just a couple of cuts and some broken teeth. And it's like, well, he's not been released for intensive care yet. And I just wonder if they're saying it to make the governing bodies and stuff not, even consider stripping him or talking about eliminator fights so they can kind of delay that process. Do you think I'm reading too much into it, or? what did Daphne say? Yeah. All right then, moving on. Next one, I think Phil's going to bite my head off for this, for constantly giving him airtime. Derek Chisora.
Yes.
Derek Chisora did a bit of a press conference day in the week, and I have to bring it up because everything that makes me think a little bit, I want to bring up to you fellas and the fans. He commented on Frank Warren being a dinosaur and too old for the game and calling his name out.
That's exactly what Chisora is.
Yeah. And I just want to know all your thoughts on, do we think Frank Warren, he specifically said he should pass it over to his son. and let his son kind of become the main face of Queensbury. Do we think he's got any kind of, substance in what he's saying there? Do we think Frank Warren should move on and that he's a bit past it or out of the game compared to Eddie? So I do think from like a social and marketing perspective, definitely, Eddie blinds him.
I feel the marketing side of it is unquestionable. I mean, you just look at every video on YouTube, Eddie's in it, or that his fights are being spoke about. Like, I didn't even know Josh Warrington was fighting until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
they're so under the radar. There's no promotion on them. There's no, they might have like a sign on the side of the building, but that's nowhere near as big as a big YouTube video, an interesting YouTube video. So I think he's definitely fell behind on that. I can't really comment on him passing over to his son. Like, you don't know, he might be even worse with that kind of stuff. You never know. But yeah, definitely marketing side, he's miles and miles behind.
He's one of the last of. He's an old school promoter, isn't he?
They all are, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
I just think like. I think everyone forgets what their job is, because their job title is meant to be promoter. Ultratech, a YouTube channel I watch, he talks about how good Frank Warren is at matchmaking and all that stuff, and I know that has to be a factor. But that should also really be taken into the hands of the manager and the trainer and the fighter himself. I think a big part of the matchmaking should be on the fighter's side, and all the promoter really is a wallet to promote them at the start. But I feel like the promoters don't do a good job as what Eddie does, any of them, not just Frank Warren, Al Heyman, Bob Arum, the lot. And I also wondered if you thought there's any substance in that, really, whether it needs to move on a bit.
I think maybe because Eddie's changed the game in that sense so much, everyone's kind of fell behind. If Eddie wasn't there, Frank Warren would still be, known as the top promoter. But because Eddie Hearn's done so well in the marketing and promoting of the fights and getting bums in seats, I should say. Yeah. I think that's the only reason why people are saying that they would have fell behind.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Eddie's been lucky getting that Sky contract. Sky are still way bigger than BT in the UK, especially on a pay-per-view platform anyway. And obviously getting Anthony Joshua, again, it's a two-way street. Eddie's played his part, but getting Anthony Joshua has been a big, massive pull for him in making Matchroom bigger. But yeah, I do just think all the other promoters fail really with promoting, because if I see an interview with Eddie, I used to dislike Eddie actually, probably like a year or two ago, but I watch him now and I just think how good he is for boxing, in the sense that he gossips, he stirs, he causes shit. His cards are the best, in my opinion, overall. If you look at the undercards of fights, on pay-per-view fights anyway, he puts on better undercards than the other promoters, in my opinion, again, that is. And I just think maybe boxing could go to a better place once the old boys kind of leave the scene. Yeah, I mean, I wonder what Jay thinks. I can see him smiling there. Being an old school fan, and I think I know what he's going to say already, actually.
Well,
are you going to comment on Eddie Hearn's undercards?
Look, they haven't all been great, let's be honest. And look, at the end of the day, you've got to understand that Sky were putting pressure on Eddie Hearn to deliver better fights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think sometimes we're blinded by his bullshit. We're blinded by his social media presence and his YouTube presence. Do you know what I mean? Bob Arum has been in the game for 50 years. Now, you're not in the game for 50 years if you're a shit promoter.
There's a reason he's still knocking about, isn't there?
Frank Warren has been in the game for what? He's probably 40 years, 30 odd years, still doing it at a top level. Al Heyman's no spring chicken, even though you never see him. But he's like, I think Al Heyman used to be into.
Got his 60s, hasn't he? He was like in that.
He used to be music. He used to be promotion. I think Al Heyman, didn't he? But like, how old's he? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think we're very quick to jump on this social media Eddie Hearn bandwagon because he's watchable. Do you know what I mean? So because he's watchable, he's a great promoter. Well, okay. Well, Don King was a great promoter. Do you know what I mean? Don King did what Eddie Hearn did, but 20 times better. Do you know what I mean? but he didn't stick around necessarily, probably more because he was corrupt as fuck and he robbed everyone's money. That's probably why. But he still runs fighters. He still has his own promotions. But what I'm
still
saying
going,
is,
isn't he, Don King?
I don't think because you're funny and because you're entertaining, you're a bit of a clown, it makes you a good promoter. Not at all. Do you know what I mean? Matchmaking is a massive part of being a good promoter. And the problem is we buy into Eddie Hearn's bullshit. What he is a good salesman, which I suppose
that's his job.
Point, isn't it?
But he's a great salesman because he can sell you shit that you go, if you looked at it realistically, you think, well, that's a shit fight, but I get sold it. Do you know what I mean?
But that's his job.
It is his job, but remembering that a big part of the people that watch Matchroom shows are casual fans. Do you know what I mean? So you could literally sell them any shit. Do you know what I mean? And if it's put the right way to them, or it's marketed the right way, or Sky put the right backing behind it, or the fighters have enough bad blood between them, people will fucking buy it and lap it up. And really what they're watching, they don't really know whether it's a good fight or a bad fight. If someone doesn't get knocked out, it's a bad fight.
Do you not think this is going back to the whole purist idea of let's be purist and be snobby? Because casuals watching boxing is good, like point blank. It's good. It brings money in, it brings interest. And because of AJ and his casual army, that's why every other British fighter is making 20% on their paychecks 10 years ago. And that has to be attributed to Eddie Hearn. It has to. No, I'm open-minded, but that's where I sit at the minute.
I think. Look, everyone at some point was a casual fan. Everyone.
I say I am. I say I am half casual.
Where you started, I was a casual fan as a kid. I'd only watched, Nigel Benn, Frank Bruno. Do you know what I mean? Prince Nazim, Lennox Lewis, whatever. Mike Tyson. I was a casual fan. I didn't know the history of boxing. I didn't know really what had come before. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, Eddie Hearn was in a position where he took over that he had the backing of Sky. Before Design, before going to America, Frank Warren had Box Nation. Eddie Hearn had Sky. BT weren't in the game. So you monopolise everything. Do you know what I mean? And when you've got the power of Sky behind you in a corporation, and then you get a golden boy like a gold medalist like Anthony Joshua, of course, I reckon I could fucking promote Anthony Joshua because I don't think it's that hard a job. Do you know what I mean?
Would you look at Daniel Dubois, though, at 21 and look at what he's doing? And do you not think, obviously he's not got that Olympic gold medal, but how much does that really count?
But remembering...
Where's Daniel Dubois?
BT Sports are 20 years behind Sky Sports when it comes to boxing.
Sure.
Sky Sports have got a history. They've got a 20-year history of putting on amazing, great fight nights. Ricky Hatton, Mayweather, Amir Khan, Tyson, Holyfield, Lewis, all the biggest fights in the last 20 years, Sky pretty much put on. So now you've got a new player who's also secondary in the football market and in the sports market in the UK, trying to push fighters. You know what I mean? When predominantly of the people out there that support boxing have got Sky Sports. Do you know what I mean? So you've got a big machine behind it. I would think it'd be very different if Eddie Hearn had Box Nation and Frank Warren was with Sky.
I agree. To go back to the original... Go on, Phil.
I was just going to say, you're talking about... We focus a lot on Eddie Hearn and sort of media presence, and you focus on his marketing. But how much of an important factor is actually making the fight? So if you look at heavyweight recently, the biggest fights that have happened, or between the top guys, have been Wilder Fury, and Wilder Ortiz. What for that fight to me? What that you'd like? These are the fights we'd like to see the top 5 fighting. Who's Josh fought top 5? Bar Klitschko at the time.
Povetkin. You have to give that. I think you're being anti-Joshua.
But remembering,
easy fights to make though. He's not made the big fights.
Well,
wasn't Deontay Wilder going to fight Povetkin? Before that?
Yeah.
He's not made those huge fights at heavyweight yet. So, just thought I'd throw that out then.
No.
Is he as good at making fights as the other promoters are? Potentially, we don't know.
I think he demands a lot, doesn't he, in his big fights? Demands a lot of money.
I'll ask you all point blank then. yes or no, going around the table, who's the better promoter in the UK? Frank Warren already heard.
Eddie.
He's more known, to be fair. He gets more stuff out there.
Jay?
So
I think it's a difficult question to answer, to be honest with you, because you've got different backing altogether. Do you know what I mean? You can't say if they were switched in, as I said, in different positions, where would they be? If Frank Warren had his own and Sky behind him, where would he be? What would he be doing? Obviously, the fighters are going to go there.
What do you think to this point, though, Jay? Because I think this is a big tell.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that DAZN have picked Eddie and not Frank?
Because he had more coverage in the UK.
So is that the answer there, or do you want to kind of?
But he's going to have more coverage because he's got Sky Sports behind him.
Okay.
And I think at the end of the day, look at Tyson Fury. Is he badly promoted? And I'd say
or is he a self-promoter though?
I'd say he is, but at the end of the day, you have to have a platform and a person to facilitate that. Otherwise, you don't need a promoter, do you? Why you got a promoter?
Fury's an interesting one because he was with Hennessy before, wasn't he? And
yeah. Well,
who's
awful. I don't know if Hennessy's homeless or is he okay? Anyone checked in on him?
He's not got over Hughie Fury not being given that decision against Joseph Parker.
That's one of the best interviews.
Well, what I'm saying is, who's a bigger name in heavyweight boxing? Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua?
AJ.
No way. How?
Jay's a hater. Jay's a hater.
Well, no, but at the end of the day, who's more popular in America? AJ or Tyson Fury? The man that's literally on everyone's lips doing WWE.
Are you talking this 16th of October today, or are you talking 6 months ago though?
I'm talking today. Who is the biggest name? Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. No one's hearing from Anthony Joshua. I ain't seen him.
Isn't the money in numbers that tell though? I don't know.
If Anthony Joshua was fighting Otto Wallin,
I think you sell more than $1 million on the gate. Do you think there's a reason why Fury's doing WWE though?
Because he's promoted himself.
Is it because he's not big enough though?
Well, you say that. He was on Josh Rogan's podcast and got a couple of million views. Do you know what I mean? For an hour.
What would AJ get? What would AJ get?
Probably not as many. I think why, for some reason, we think that Anthony Joshua is some superstar abroad. He probably got bigger when he got beaten. That was the best thing he could have done for his profile.
To be fair, Jay, the honest answer is I don't know actually. I can't make my mind up. There's no doubt, is there, that Joshua is getting the most money. So if you're getting the most money, that often means you're probably the bigger name. But like I say, I don't know if it's because it's because of that DAZN initial investment slush fund that's bumping that money up.
Well, where's his money coming from?
Yeah, it's DAZN, yeah. And, well, they're spending silly money.
What's Tyson Fury getting? 90 million?
85 million for 5 fights, yeah.
It's interesting. Today, Jay, I'd agree with you. I'd say Fury's bigger in America. But I'd say it's very close, though. I'd say it's very close. And I'd say Fury's having to do a lot of work to stay neck and neck with Joshua. That's just my thoughts.
I was just about to say, the fact that it's very, very close and AJ's been off the radar for, 6 months?
Yeah.
Still neck and neck. I think it shows that AJ's natural profile is a lot higher than Fury's. Fury's having to really work at it.
It's like everything in boxing. I think you find out the answers at the end of the career, don't you, with stuff like that. But yeah, I think a pattern of the show though is just to call the other person a hater though. I agree.
Well, AJ's not bothered about his US profile at the minute. Otherwise, he'd have had that fight over there, the rematch, wouldn't he?
Say that again, mate.
The profile.
He's not bothered about his US profile at the minute because he'd have had the rematch in America, whereas now he's having it in Saudi, isn't he? So,
what's your point? I don't get your point on that one, mate.
Well, if he's bigger in America, if he was a huge draw in America, that fight would be in America. They've gone looking for money elsewhere potentially because the US aren't giving it, so they've had to find the Saudis to fund this one. So I don't know. I don't think it's as comprehensive to say that Josh is the biggest star over there. I genuinely think we don't really know.
Good point, mate.
We'd have to go out on the street, wouldn't we, and just ask. Obviously, we can't do that, but I don't think he's a massive draw over there at the minute. But
yeah, it's a good point. That is, mate. I didn't really consider the Saudi facts, but yeah, okay. Moving on then, we'll look forward to this weekend's fight, which I think is a cracker, and it's one of them that's kind of snuck up on me, and it's been off my radar, and then I've seen it, and I thought, brilliant. Again, I want to go to the resident opponent pronouncer in Jay here.
I knew you'd do that.
Gvozdyk and Beterbiev, I'm going to go. Beterbiev, okay. We'll do predictions in a minute. What do you think of the fight? Do you think the winner is the number one at light heavyweight, or do you think that still remains with Kovalev or even Bivol? Do you think it's up in the air? What do we think to this fight?
Well, I just thought we talked about. I think it was episode 2. We talked about this fight briefly, anyway. Roughly when we discovered that it was on. But yeah, you've got Gvozdyk who, he beat Adonis Stevenson to win the belt. I'm glad, obviously, he knocked Stevenson out because he would have been robbed on the cards there, but more a methodical fighter, more of a boxer in that respect. And then you've got Beterbiev, who just loves, more of a brawler, big shots, very good style. Styles make fights, and this is quite intriguing to see which one will come out on top. Yeah. So yeah, really looking forward to it. I'll give you my prediction in a minute, but I don't think the number one will be determined by this fight because you've got Bivol and because you've got Kovalev or Canelo still knocking about the winner of that fight. So those guys all still need to fight. It obviously puts Beterbiev or Gvozdyk somewhat out of the picture for being number one for the time being. But no, it won't determine who's number one. But yeah, it'd be a very good fight. Looking forward to it quite a lot.
How much has everyone watched of these two prior to this fight?
Enough to know, I think.
That's a very political answer, that is, Jay. Yeah. Harry?
Yeah, bits and bobs, bits of YouTube. Never watched. Set up and watch the fight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we'll watch the last 3 fights for each because, like I said, we did a little bit for this fight. I think it was like episode 2 or whatever when I was off in the summer. So yeah, seeing enough to sort of know, what the styles are, how they're going to go about it, and to know that it's going to be a really good fight. They're both of a high level, so it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, see, you'd have to educate me because I've mainly watched Bivol. Actually, I've watched about 5 of Bivol's fights, and he's kind of my boy and my pick at light heavy at the moment. What are the styles of Gvozdyk and Beterbiev? Because I've watched both of their last 2 fights, but I can't actually recall what kind of fighters they are. I don't think I've watched them properly or well enough to comment on that. I don't know what your thoughts are on the style clash, or is it a boxer versus puncher scenario, or is it kind of a comparison that we could make?
They're both very tough. They've both got big knockouts on their records. Do you know what I mean? I think this is it's a good fight, or it could be a really bad fight. Do you know what I mean? It could be one of them. I'm not sure. I think it'll go late rounds. Do you know what I mean? But I think Beterbiev, I don't know. It's a real tough pick for me because I think Beterbiev could knock him out. Do you know what I mean? He's definitely got that power. Do you know what I mean? And he's shown it. But I think Gvoznik's record is better slightly. Do you know what I mean? He's slightly better of opponents. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's going to be, there definitely could be. I think Beterbiev could put him down at some point in the fight. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know whether he's just going to be too much for him. Do you know what I mean? I think Gvozdyk is a better boxer. He's a better boxer. But I don't know whether Beterbiev's pure persistence and pressure and power is going to be maybe too much for him.
What will be interesting is that they both. So if you look in the last couple of fights, most notable British fans will be when Beterbiev fought Callum Johnson. He got hit in that. I think he got knocked down in that fight. Beterbiev gets hit, and so does Vosdik as well. So they are going to get tagged by one another. And what will be interesting, like as Jay just said, can Vosdik take Beterbiev shots, because he does take shots. And if he can, there's a very good possibility that then what will happen is Vosdik will then break him down and then get that late stoppage, which he tends to do. Did against Adonis Stevenson. So there's aspects that you're looking forward to that you just don't know the answer to, really. They're the top two. Well, top four really, that top level in that division.
Don't know, do we?
And you just don't know. It's a really good 50-50 fight. Beterbiev could stop him early doors. Gvozdyk could take it late. It could go to points. It's shaping up to be a really interesting fight, especially if you're a purist. So, good.
What does watched bits and bobs Harry think?
Just think it's nice. I won't comment too much on the actual fight because I've not seen too much of it. Your bits and bobs you see on YouTube, but I think it's just good to see two elite fighters fighting against each other. I think we see it too many times in boxing when fighters don't fight in their prime, or one's just over the hill, the other one's just before, or one's in their prime, one's over the hill. You never catch two fighters. Well, you do sometimes, but rarely catch two fighters fighting in their peaks. They're both real pure boxers. They've both got their amateur records. I think Beterbiev lost to Usyk in the Olympic final. So I'm just happy about that. I think it's nice to see. Hopefully, it will lead to more fights like that in the future. I don't think it will, because I think they're only fighting because they don't have them big names worldwide. I think they're fighting. I think it's that. Them Eastern Europeans don't really fight for the money, do they? They fight for the glory. They fight for the belts. They fight for the
light heavies. That's always especially since we've followed boxing. That's always been a division where top guys fight each other. Ward, Kovalev, the two of them fights. Cruiserweight as well. It's another division the same, where the best do fight the best, and you do tend to get quite a lot of Eastern Europeans in those divisions, and those fights happen. Usyk break. Well, that boxing super series, the cruiserweights, the first time was brilliant. You had some very good fights, especially the semi-finals as well. So light, heavy, and cruiser, you do see the best fight the best, which is why it's good divisions to watch. They're not necessarily glamour divisions, but if you're into your boxing and you're into your more purist fights, those two are very good divisions for it. So.
Yeah, they're definitely hidden gems, aren't they? Light, heavy, and cruiser.
Usyk Bradis, when was that? January last year. Incredible fight, really intriguing fight, and in Latvia somewhere. So like you said, they are hidden gems. Those two divisions are.
Definitely. Right then. So I'm going to move on to the meat and bones of this topic, lads. I'm going to bring up the resident Boxing Talk podcast prediction spreadsheet that I've sadly got saved on my desktop, and I'm going to push all three of you for a relatively specific prediction.
No, it's not. Stats are king, mate. I like
for sure. Stats are king, and I'm monitoring them well. So, does anyone want to be brave and go first prediction?
Vosdik, 10th round stoppage.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm going to go Beterbiev split decision.
You love a split decision, huh?
Yeah, you're...
Sit on the fence, you do, in every
aspect. Yeah, you're dirty. Jay, do you want me to go, or do you want to put your hat in there?
Gvozdyk points win.
To Gvozdyk. What are you, Harry?
Split decision win.
Noted. I'm going Beterbiev knockout. Stoppage, knockout, stoppage, whatever.
Are you going early, late?
I want a round.
On a round, Will.
I'm going to go 8th round stoppage for Beterbiev. I'm only going on that because, like I say, I think we all agree it's 50-50.
10 points.
And I don't know like I said, I don't know too much about the styles actually. Even though I've watched them, should be enough. I can't think how their styles will clash or gel or get on together. So I'm just going to go on the fact that Beterbiev's got the slightly better, well, a lot better amateur record from what I can see, and he's the bigger puncher. So I'm going to go on that basis because, to my knowledge, they're both incredibly solid boxers, and there shouldn't be too many levels between them from a skill standpoint. So I think I'm going to back the puncher in this case. So, right, predictions noted. I reckon I also predict I'll come out on top on this one. But yeah, right, fellas, I did say I'd have to shoot after an hour, but if anyone wants to bring up a quick topic before we close out the show, feel free.
Dave Allen, Daniel Dubois.
Okay.
Who wants to see that?
I want to see it.
Just feel like
I think. I don't know how we're appearing on your screens, but are me and Harry at the top and Jay and Phil on the bottom?
No, I've got you 4 in a line.
Have you? I was going to say I think I've got a good split of the purists on the bottom with Phil and Jay, and probably the more casuals with me and Harry on top. I like the fight because I think it's good for Daniel Dubois because I'm a fan of Daniel Dubois. I backed him to beat Gorman. I think he will be a world champion. So I think it will get him good publicity. I do love a knockout, and I'd be lying if I said that I cared about Dave Allen's health. I mean, obviously, no, not in a horrible sense, but like, if he fell ill or actually got hurt, I'd feel awful for him, and I wish him all the best, and I hope he gets out of the ring safely. But like I say, same for Fury, you know. But I would rather see him get in with Deontay Wilder. You know, I do want to see good fights. I do want to see knockouts. So I do want to see it.
Just to look at 2 points you've said earlier, like, you know, you're saying like PEDs are dangerous, but then you get boxing mismatches. Well, this is, I think Dubois is going to absolutely, you know, destroy him.
Slight difference though, because Witherspoon's taking it because he needs the cash, you know, and it's a big break for him. Dave Allen, every boxer needs the cash. Dave Allen's had options, and Dave Allen's looking for the fight. Shaz Witherspoon was dangled it on a carrot, so I don't think it's quite the same. But...
Well, the second point as well, I don't think we're going to learn too much about Dubois from this fight. I think it'll be a very easy night's work. I think Dave Allen for a long time has had a, you know, everyone thinks he's better than he is. He's not that good at all. Yeah. He's a British level fighter at best. The fact he was fighting Lucas Brown and, you know, on pay-per-view cards, and it's just
got sold down the street.
I hope Dave Allen makes enough money that he can retire. He's in good health, but I don't want to watch him box. It's just trash, absolute trash.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'd rather watch Dubois, Joe Joyce. Clearly not happening.
Yeah.
So Dave Allen, Dubois, I'm happy to see him knock out.
Where does Joe Joyce go at 32, 33?
I was going to bring him up actually.
His media career, that's what he needs to quit.
He needs to quit his what?
Media career. Joe Joyce does.
I didn't know he had
media career.
He does the fights, and he can't string a sentence together, and it really winds me up. He needs to just knock it on the head.
What?
Keep on with his boxing.
I don't think I've ever seen him as a pundit, but
he does. He does the fights.
The fights for who?
He did the Dubois fight.
For BT, right?
Yeah. That's probably just because he was a possible opponent. I don't know if he'd have been called in as like a 1-year contract in pundit.
Regardless, he needs to he needs to turn it down next time.
Okay, Jay.
What?
Dave Allen Dubois.
Look, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. He's just, I don't know. It's just, he'll absolutely wipe the floor with him. I don't, you know, Dave Allen is such an interesting character as far as I'm concerned, because his mind, and he's obviously suffers from mental health issues, because his mind flips from one thing to another. You know, one day he's training hard. He believes he's 3 fights off being a world champion. He gets beat. He's going to quit. Then the next day, he's not doing it for money. He wants the British title. He's doing it for glory. Then the next day, he wants it for money and blah, blah. So I think he's on this make as much money as you can tip now. Do you know what I mean? And utilise his presence while he has it before it disappears and goes into obscurity. Problem is, being with that, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous, especially when you're fighting someone young and hungry and as powerful and as devastating as Daniel Dubois is, especially at that level. You know, for a promotional side and a matchmaking side to make money, it's a great fight. Do you know what I mean? But from if you're thinking about someone that could get seriously hurt, you know, and the way Dave Allen fights, it's a definite possibility. He fights with his head. Do you know what I mean? And we've seen it, you know, against decent opponents. He's taken a beating. He took a beating at the end of the day against David Price. So
he got boxed as well. He didn't even. It wasn't a knockout. He got beat up, then knocked out.
Yeah. He got his head boxed off, and it's not just like a one-punch knockout where he's going. He's getting sustaining heavy abuse. Now, none of us can say you shouldn't do that, or you can't do that, or you shouldn't fight. That's down to him. It's up to him. It's his life. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But for me, no.
Especially after the fights he's had. Like, you know, we're not here to tell him what to do, but we know that, you know, he fought Dillian Whyte and he's fought Luis Ortiz, and he's come out and said himself that, you know, you can't piss properly, and he's had, you know, proper internal damage, and the fights that he's had, and we all know the damage that he's taken. And you think, well, does he need to have his head smashed in by Daniel Dubois? No, he doesn't. And we all know he takes fights for peanuts. How much did he fight for? Was it Ortiz, well, or Dillian? What was it, $8,000?
Rumoured between, yeah.
But I think now he's started making bigger money, hasn't he? And he's kind of got a taste for it. And he's kind of thinking, you know, I make $80,000 here, $100,000 here, $70,000 here, whatever it may be. No, is this? I don't know if he heard like he'd signed a 3-fight deal with BT. Is that right?
Really?
He popped him.
Really? I've not heard that, but I'd be interested in that.
You know, so if he was to fight, I think Ultratech, I think he said, you know, Dubois, Gorman, and who would be the other one? Dubois, Gorman, and Joyce. Do you know what I mean?
Any of them fight.
There's 3 opponents. Do you know what I mean? Knockout jobs.
He's padding cards again, isn't he? I think that's his career, isn't he? He's just padding up cards. He's selling a few pay-per-views, isn't he?
And that is 99% of boxers' careers.
It's sad.
To be known. That's interesting if it's a 3-fight deal, because if it is a 3-fight deal, you'd back him to not fight Dubois first, or am I wrong?
No, because the only way you would get a 3-fight deal with anyone is if he's being dictated to who he's going to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not going to walk in there going, no, well, I'm not going to fight him. I want to fight some Polish fella. That'll be part of the selling point. You know what I mean? Sign me on a 3-fight deal and I'll fight Dubois and I'll fight this person. Okay. Yeah. And for Dubois, it makes sense, doesn't it, really? Do you know what I mean?
Theme with boxing, isn't it? Do you have your business boxing head on, or do you have your fan head on? And it's always a compromise between the two, because usually your thoughts for one is different, you know, for the other head. But to kind of conclude this, then, do you want to see it?
No.
Only one.
But I think Dave Allen's kind of playing a dangerous game, because the more he does this and the more he goes on, his popularity is going to, and people will start to turn. People will start to turn again. They'll either turn against him or feel really sorry for him, and then he becomes a hopeless figure. Do you know what I mean? And that's
the worst case, isn't he, where he's an awful boxer but got a fantastic chin, and there's probably no worse combination than that.
And that's when you start to get and slurring your words, and then you become this sad figure. Do you know what I mean? And the way that Dave Allen's mental health obviously is very up and down, this is not a good move for him. Do you know what I mean? Because you end up having a whole Paul Gascoigne scenario, or do you know what I mean? Like this, you know, I'm not saying he's a great boxer like Paul Gascoigne was a great footballer, but do you know what I mean? This sad figure that was once so popular and friendly and witty just becomes this, you know.
Also, Dave Allen, like you spoke about Dubois being young. at 21, which obviously I agree with. But, you know, what is Dave at? He's 27, isn't he?
27.
You know, he's a young guy himself. And you've said this a couple of times, but like, because you followed his career probably closer than any of us. I don't know what that says about you, but there it is. But, you know, like, you know, when he was fighting Lenroy Thomas on the Kell Brook card?
I do.
So that was what, 2-3 years ago. You've said recently he sounds just a little bit slower, and he sounds like he's beginning to
point blank. I'm certain of it. Yeah, he 100% to me sounds way off
from what he used to be. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's not a big guy anyway, is he? He's not like big stature. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're taking punishment off big guys. Do you know what I mean? He's not. You know, he's almost a cruiserweight, isn't he? You know, he's on that threshold.
The thing is, like, everyone always jokes about, I'm sure when us lot have spoken with our mates in the pub or whatever, I think the term we always hear is, oh, I'd get in the ring for 100 grand. I'd get in the ring for 50 grand. And you would one time, but what I wouldn't do is get in the ring 10 times and get beaten the shit out of for a couple of 100 grand, because it really isn't worth it, is it? Because
But I guess it becomes addictive, doesn't it? You know, if you've been earning really low purses and then all of a sudden you get an 80, 90 grand purse and you just think, well, if I do one more, I'll be this set. And if I do two more, then I could buy two. Do you know what I mean? And you're always going to think, well, you know, you're not thinking about what's the worst that could happen.
He's always going to get the offers as well, isn't he? Because he is a name and he is likeable and he is a little draw. So he's always going to be getting them. There's always going to be that temptation there because promoters are going to want him on their card.
No, bless his soul, because he said it himself before. He's one of them lucky boxers who has the opportunity to probably pursue something after boxing. Don't get me wrong, probably not like Tony Bellew being a pundit for Sky, but I'm sure he'd get some kind of job, whether it be a trainer or, I don't know, some little gig at MTK doing something or other. You know, he's
look at Danny Williams. Look at Danny Williams, do you know what I mean? And how he's ended up, do you know what I mean? Like, punch drunk, still fighting.
He's punch drunk now.
Oh, yeah, the man is like, do you know what I mean? In a seriously bad way, because he was still fighting up until, I think, even like recently. Do you know what I mean?
So I've got a bit of a connection to him because he won me. Because when obviously every dad thinks that Mike Tyson's the best ever, don't they? And I was a young lad at the time. I remember Mike Tyson, Danny Williams, wasn't it?
Yeah. I
remember like an idiot picking Danny Williams, just being devil's advocate, really, and he went on and won, didn't he? But yeah, that's sad. How old is he then now, Jay? Is he?
So he's 46.
Yeah, sad, isn't it?
And he's had 53 fights, 28 losses, and he fought 3 times this year.
Jesus.
You just know he's fighting for probably $5 a time as well.
Exactly. So why you know what I mean? That's an issue. That's an issue. You're not doing it for the love of it. You're not doing it because you want to win titles. You want to earn a few grand.
Yeah.
That's I mean, he started in 1995 was his professional debut. And
24 years.
He fought last month.
Yeah. Maybe that's the topic for next week. Maybe we could
he's been boxing as long as we've been alive, Will.
Warrior. I think as well, Nigel Benn and his fight's dangerous as well, isn't it? As well as Dave Allen.
Yeah.
But he's one of those names that just kept on being bought out. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you worry about Dave Allen.
Yeah. Well, as always, to end on a lovely note there then. God bless Dave Allen from the Boxing Talk podcast, and God bless Derek Chisora, the Patriots Saints of the podcast.
1.5 weeks till Josh Taylor Prograis. Just thought I'd get that in there.
There you go, mate.
Josh Taylor Prograis. We're going 1.5 weeks.
Yeah, you can say that one more time if you like. All right, then. We'll wrap it up there then, fellas. Thank you again. Been a good first live show, bar the inevitable comedic hiccup at the start, and been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks.
Right, I reckon I'm still live.
Right, still live.